Hello guys, my name is Balkrishna Srivastava and welcome to Code with BK. So in this video we write C++ code solution for problem number 20, valid parenthesis. So before we begin, it is a request to please subscribe to my channel. So in the first half I'm going to solve this problem, I'm going to code it, submit it, and in the next half of the video I'm going to explain how this is exactly working. Alright, so to solve this we need a stack of characters. Okay, and a stack of characters because the input is a string which is made up of characters, and each of these parentheses is basically a character. Okay, a single character. There are 6 possible characters that you can have in this string S. Alright, so there is an inbuilt stack, it's an HCL template. Okay, you can make a stack of char, you say st. Right, I take an index starting from 0 and I iterate the entire string less than what is the variable for the string length. Okay, I get the ith character C as S of I. So if I get any of these opening brackets, okay, opening parenthesis, opening curly brace, or opening bracket, so these are called parentheses, these are called curly braces, and these are called square brackets or simply brackets. So if I get any of these opening brackets, I'm going to push them on the top of the stack. Alright, so if C is an opening bracket curly brace, or C is an opening bracket parenthesis, or C is an opening bracket square bracket, I push the opening bracket on the top of the stack, which obviously starts as an empty stack. I'm going to say st.push and I pass C. Okay, else. So this is the part where this is a closing bracket, because there are 6 possible characters that can be a part of this string S, the 3 of which you have considered in this if statement. So the remaining would be this closing one, parenthesis, or this closing curly brace, or this closing square bracket. Okay, so the else part is where the logic is. And if you look at the question, it says valid if open brackets must be closed by same type of brackets. Open brackets must be closed in the correct order, and every closed bracket has a corresponding open bracket of the same type. So when we push an open bracket on the top of the stack, it must be closed by the same type of bracket. Alright, so if I encounter a closing bracket of any type, the top of the stack should be of the corresponding same opening bracket. That is, if my C is a closing curly brace, okay, then the top of the stack has to be an opening curly brace for it to be the right matching. Alright, so if the top of the stack which I can get using the top function is not equal to this opening curly brace, it means there is a mismatch and I return false. Okay, similar has to be the case for the other 2 bracket types. So if C is of type closing parenthesis, the top has to be of type opening parenthesis, and if C is of type closing square bracket, the top has to be of the type opening square bracket. If this is a mismatch, we return false. If this is a mismatch, we return false. Okay, because in my else case, these are the 3 possible types of square brackets. So if I come here on line 23 after these if statements, it means that the closing bracket that we have has the right corresponding opening bracket on the top of the stack, which we now have to pop. Right? And after either if or else case, you move on to the next character. Okay. Finally, you return true when you have traversed the entire string and the stack has to be empty as well. So you return true if the stack is empty. Alright. Okay. So this stack empty condition you can check here as well. That if stack goes empty and you were expecting a closing bracket, you return false. Okay. So this is the case for a closing bracket. If the stack is empty and we were expecting closing bracket, we return false. Okay, check if this is the correct closing bracket. Okay, this should be okay. So let me test this. All right. Okay, let me submit this. All right, reach 100%. Okay. Now let's go to the explanation part. I'm going to take two examples. The first one being this, and we'll take another complicated example. So if I have a string, say parenthesis, square, and then curly braces, and my indices in this string are going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if this is my stack, okay, where I'm gonna keep stacking the elements on top of each other as they come. All right, I have to start with my index equal to 0, which is here. My C is going to be S of I. So whenever I get an opening bracket, okay, I push onto the stack, so that when there is a corresponding closing bracket, I can pop this off the stack. All right, and whenever there is a closing bracket, okay, look at the top. You have to check the top for the corresponding opening bracket. Okay, so I starts at 0. My C is going to be this. This is an opening bracket pushed on the top. My I moves here. I becomes 1. All right, this is a closing bracket now. This is a closing bracket now. So my top has to be a corresponding opening bracket, which is true in this case. All right, so this is popped. Okay, this is popped, and I move on to my I value 2, so I comes here. Okay, this is an opening bracket, goes on to the top of the stack. All right, the stack is currently empty. All right, you move on to the next character, which is I equal to 3. You get a closing bracket. There should be a corresponding opening bracket on the top of the stack. There is, so you pop this, okay, and you move on to the next character. So I equal to 4, it has opening curly brace, all right, which goes on to the top of the stack, because for opening brackets we push the bracket on the top of the stack, and then I moves forward, I becomes 5. Here we have this closing bracket, closing curly brace. So the corresponding opening bracket should be on the top of the stack. It is, so you pop this. Okay, I becomes 6. Okay, I becomes 6. I less than s dot length condition is now false, so you come out of the while loop. Return true if the stack is empty, return false if the stack is not empty. Stack is empty, there is nothing on the top of the stack, so you return true. So this is a valid set of brackets, which we can see here. Output is true. Okay, let's consider another example as well. So for this string, my indices are going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, 14 characters. So I starts at 0. At 0, I have an opening bracket which I push on the top of the stack. I move on to the I equal to 1. At 1, there is an opening bracket which I push on the top of the stack again. Alright, I equal to 2, I have an opening bracket. I push it on the top of the stack. Okay, at I equal to 3, I have an opening bracket which I push on the top of the stack. At I equal to 4, I have a closing bracket. For the closing bracket, we look at the top of the stack should contain the corresponding opening bracket, which is true in this case. For this closing curly brace, we have this top right now at opening curly brace, right? So this is popped, okay, and we can move on to the next character. Okay, this check was complete. With the closing curly brace, we found the right corresponding opening curly brace on the top of the stack, which is what we want. Okay, we move on to I equal to 5, where we have a closing square bracket. Closing square bracket, so there must be an opening corresponding opening square bracket on the top of the stack, which there is, which we pop from the stack. Okay, we move on to the next value of I, which is 6. So you have a opening curly brace which you push on the top of the stack. You move on to I equal to 7, closing curly brace. Now closing curly brace must have a corresponding opening curly brace on the top of the stack, which there is, so I pop this off the stack. I move on to I equal to 8. Okay, I equal to 8 has a corresponding opening bracket which I push on the top of the stack. I equal to 9 has opening parenthesis which I push on the top of the stack. I equal to 10 has closing parenthesis. Since this is the closing bracket, there should be a corresponding opening bracket which is on the top, which I pop. Alright, so moving on to the next, I equal to 11, there is a closing square bracket there is a closing square bracket must have a corresponding opening square bracket, which there is, which I pop off the stack. Alright, moving on to the next value of I, which is 12. I equal to 12 has a closing parenthesis, should have a corresponding opening parenthesis on top, true, so I pop this opening parenthesis. Move on to the next value of I, which is 13, has parenthesis, should be a parenthesis on the top, there is, which we pop. Okay, I becomes 14, loop breaks, your stack is empty, so this is a valid parenthesis. So if we consider a case of invalid, okay, so in this case 0 1 2 3, so for opening parenthesis you'll put this on the top, for this opening bracket you'll put on the top. So when you are at I equal to 2, you get this, there should be a corresponding opening, there is not, so you return false. Alright, there is another case you can take for false, is say simply this. So when you have this, you push it on the top of the stack, you have this, right, the string goes empty. So I equal to 1, string will go empty, but the stack is not empty. There has to be a closing corresponding bracket for this. Since the stack is not empty, you return false, because you are returning true if the stack is empty. Alright, so this is the solution to LeetCode problem number 20, valid parenthesis in C++. Okay, this tag is inbuilt. You can, if you want to just compile this in your system, you can copy this, okay, paste this here, okay, and for the stack to work, you can do #include stack, okay, g++ LeetCode 20.cpp minus LeetCode 20, which is okay. If we want to test this, we can have string s equal to okay, and see out valid is valid and pass s. Okay, I should get true. Alright, 1, which is true basically. Okay, alright, so I hope you like this video and this was helpful. If there is any doubt, there is a part you do not understand, please let me know in the comments. I always try to answer all your comments, and you can also let me know in the comments if there is a question you want me to solve, or if there's a concept you want to discuss. So please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.